When God's people are called by Him to do something great for Him, there are always naysayers, fault finders, and others who attempt to destroy the good being done with works of discouragement. Such is the case in Nehemiah chapter 4, as Nehemiah must try to keep everyone's focus on the work to which they have been called. And now, here's Pastor Todd.
Thank you for joining us for the midweek message. We've been talking about the children of Israel as they've exited the time in Babylonian captivity. We're now over 90 years past the time when they've been set free. But now we've come to the time when Nehemiah has come to rebuild the wall. He is the cupbearer to the king, which is a very high position there. He is within the presence of the king on a regular basis. The king grants him permission to go back and build the wall. Not only grants him permission, but gives him the materials and the taxes through which the wall may be rebuilt. Anytime you do something great for God, even though it is obviously a God movement, there are going to be those who stand against you. Sometimes inside, sometimes outside the organization, but whatever you do for God, understand Satan is going to come in against it. Jesus saw that even with the disciples. Peter himself stands against Jesus at one point, trying to tell him that he would not die. And when you are a leader and you're working within an organization, you got to understand when you attempt great things for God, everything is not going to go smoothly. So today we're seeing Nehemiah chapter 4, and we're going to look at three different ways that people stand up against the work of God. And number 4 is how a leader should respond. So let's look at this. Nehemiah chapter 4, verse 1. But it so happened when Sanballat heard that they were rebuilding the wall that he was furious and very indignant and mocked the Jews. And he spoke before his brethren and the army of Samaria and said, "What are these feeble Jews doing? Will they fortify themselves? Will they offer sacrifices? Will they complete it in a day? Will they revive the stones from the heaps of rubbish, stones that are burned?" Now Tobiah the Ammonite, who was beside him, and he said, "Whatever they build, even if a fox goes up on it, he will break down their stone wall. Hear, O our God, for we are despised. Turn their reproach on their own heads, and give them as a plunder to a land of captivity. Do not cover their iniquity, and do not let their sin be blotted out before you, for they have provoked you to anger before the builders." So we built the wall, and the entire wall was joined together up to half its height, and the people had a mind to work. So here we have God's people doing an incredible God thing. They are rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem, sent by God, provided by God. Everything has fallen into place. Nehemiah is doing this great work, and now the enemies have seen what's happening, and now they've responded. Anytime God's people attempt something great for God, the enemy will tear it down or attempt to tear it down with words. All kinds of words. Some are half-truths, some are untruths. Here he says, look, even if a fox were to run across the wall, it's built in such a shabby way, the wall would completely collapse. He's trying to discourage the people of God by giving these false testimonies. The antidote is to keep at the work God sent you to focus on the work. Keep your mind on the work and your work on your mind. That's kind of the old saying. If you'll notice, the last sentence here says, "So we built the wall, and the entire wall was joined together up to half its height, and the people had a mind to work." When we keep our focus on God and keep our focus on the work that He has called us to do, the words of the enemy have little to no effect. So the second thing we see happening is when the words didn't work, the enemies now are getting together and they're intending to harm the people in a physical form. So the second attempt to destroy the work of God often comes in a physical way. Now the answer to this is prayer. Listen to what happens. Now it happened when Sanballat, Tobiah, the Arabs, the Ammonites, and the Ashdodites heard the walls of Jerusalem were becoming restored and the gaps were beginning to be closed, that they became very angry. And all of them conspired together to come and attack Jerusalem and create confusion. Nevertheless, we made our prayer to our God, and because of them, we set a watch against them day and night. The first line of defense for every Christian should be prayer, even when it becomes physical. Even if it's just a quick prayer, prayer should be the main line of defense, because God is the one who protects us against our enemies. If God has truly called us to a work, and He has provided for that work, He will also provide for the physical protection that we need. Now, it doesn't mean that He's going to come down in a lightning bolt. It may be that He gives us the ability to protect ourselves. But physicality always demands prayer first. Now, the third attack is interesting because the third attack is unexpected. The third attack comes from within the group of people that you're with. Sometimes there are a group of people who are negative among you, and they were able to point out the problems and the difficulties, and all they're trying to do is draw attention away from the work of God, sometimes to themselves, sometimes to other things, but they are just pointing out every negative thing, not in hopes of helping anything, but trying to discourage everyone around them because they themselves are discouraged. This is actually an opportunity. It's an opportunity for the leader to pull everyone together with a solution. It's important here that as leaders at this moment, we do not ignore the real problems. You see, one of the things that happens is people who are negative have an incredible gift to see what you may not be paying attention to. They notice what your problems are. Don't ignore them. Come up with a solution, and let the solution be the thing that rallies the people together. Listen to how this happens in Nehemiah. In verse 10 it says, "Then Judah said, 'The strength of the laborers is failing, and there is so much rubbish that we are not able to build the wall.' And our adversaries said, 'They will neither know nor see anything till we come into their midst and kill them and cause the work to cease.' So it was when the Jews had dwelt near them came, that they told us 10 times, 'From wherever place you turn, they will be upon us.' Therefore, I positioned men behind the lower parts of the wall, at the openings, and I set the people according to their families, with their swords, their spears, and their bows. And I looked and arose and said to the nobles, to the leaders, and to the rest of the people, 'Do not be afraid of them. Remember the Lord, great and awesome, and fight for your brethren, your sons, your daughters, your wives, and your houses.' And it happens when our enemies heard that it was known to us, and that God had brought their plot to nothing, that all of us returned to the wall, every one to his work. So it was from that point on that half of my servants worked at construction, while the other half held the spears, the shields, the bows, and wore armor. And the leaders were behind all the house of Judah. Those who built on the wall and those who carried burdens loaded themselves so that with one hand they worked at construction, and with the other held a weapon. Every one of the builders had his sword girded to his side as he built, and the one who sounded the trumpet was beside me. Then I said to the nobles, the rulers, and the rest of the people, 'The work is great and extensive, and we are separated far from one another on the wall. Wherever you hear the sound of the trumpet, rally us there. Our God will fight for us.'" Nehemiah gets pushback from the nobles, and I love what he says. He said 10 times they came in. I got an idea it was more than 10 times. They're like complaining about the same issue over and over again until finally Nehemiah reacts. And the way that he reacts is by coming up with a solution. They get together, they decide that we're going to half work and half protect ourselves. And so literally in one hand they'll have a trowel where they're laying the mud and laying the block, and with the other hand they're going to hold a sword. It's the example of always ready. But I want you to notice this. He didn't turn away from the problem. He didn't ignore the problem. He didn't think the problem would just go away on its own. He came up with a solution, and the people rallied towards the solution. When we attempt great things for God, we expect the outside crowd to say things. We expect the outside crowd to push against us. But we almost never expect the inside crowd to be the main problem. And yet that often is the case. So as leaders, don't be discouraged. As people of God who are on a work for God and a mission for God, don't be discouraged when it becomes difficult. Let it be known, hey, this is the place where we take our stand. Our God is for us. The calling is great. And so the solution will present itself. The fourth thing is the reaction of Nehemiah. There's a little section here that's just 3 verses long, but I think it's one of the most important in all the chapter. It's easy to overlook this when you're talking about the war and you're talking about the builders have a trowel in one hand and a weapon in another and all those things. Those are big, grandiose things. But I want to tell you, probably one of the most important passages is 21 through 23. Look at this with me. So we labored in the work, and half the men held their spears from daybreak until the stars appeared. At the same time, I also said to the people, let each man and his servant stay at night in Jerusalem, that they may be our guard by night and a working party by day. So neither I, my brethren, my servants, nor the men of the guard who followed me took off our clothes, except that everyone took them off for washing. Nehemiah is the example. When you accomplish great things for God and God has called you to be a leader, you must be the example that you're working towards. If you're doing one thing and asking the people to do another, the people are never going to go very far. We've got to do this together. Nehemiah said, look, I didn't change my clothes just like they didn't change their clothes. I could have swapped different clothes and different things, but he said, we took off our clothes to wash them, but other than that, we wore the same clothes every day. What was he showing? He was showing we are in this together. It's imperative that if you're going to accomplish great things for God, that the people understand everyone is in this together, the leaders and the followers, those who are doing the big thinking and those who are doing the big work. Everyone has to be together in the work. Now, as we close out Nehemiah chapter 4, I hope you're enjoying it as much as I have. I love this chapter. I really do. And I hope that just as Nehemiah has found something great to do for God, that you in your own life have prayed and asked God to show you something great to be involved in. Because I'm going to tell you, He's using all of us. If we're here and we're doing what God wants us to do, I believe He has a great work for each of us to do. I hope you have a great week. Thank you for watching.